Three. We've got the three, the triple three that's in the house. So please put your hands together for our triple threes.
Ngā mihi o te wā, kura tātou katoa, ko Cam tōku ingoa. Ki te herenga hauara o I mai ana, ko Waihokai ahau, ko Whihu Kaiti tōku kai whakahaere, ko Latsmo tōku nonga, ko Waia Rawa, ko Ngāti Moa, rawa ko Ngāti Sutherland tōku iu. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. Hello everyone, it's a privilege to be in this Levar and sharing this time and space and relationship with you. And I'm also joined by Niobe Christopher Rowe, who is an expert in the Gamble Coast area at Internal Affairs. And so we'll be tag teaming today. So we'll try not to talk over one another, but if we do, you'll forgive us. And we're also blessed to have a couple of other experts in our midst. So we have John Hennebury, who is an inspector at the coalface at the DIA. So we'll be hearing about his experiences with Gamble Coast and what has evolved over time. And we also have Muriel Murphy. Muriel, would you like to stand up? She's from Ngā Puriri. She's going to be sharing some of her experiences working with venues as well. So in terms of the Gamble Coast project, it really is a collaboration with a number of different partners across the sector and bridging across into the gambling industry. So it's quite a new space. It started in 2014, really looking at what the challenges were. To give you an example of what the challenges were, so a mystery shopper exercise was conducted in 2014. And that's where actors essentially dress up as gamblers, which look like ordinary people, and they go into venues and they display signs of gambling harm. And what do you think happened when 102 gamblers went undercover into these venues? Unfortunately, only one venue provided the appropriate level of support. Now, that's obviously disappointing, but what we're here to talk to you today is about the journey and how we're trying to turn that around. Internal Affairs could have said, okay, we just want to deal with compliance and enforcement, take a punitive approach, but actually they looked to build relationships with other people who could help. And that included the Health Promotion Agency, that included the Ministry of Health. It really wanted to do some good formative research with the bar staff and also the gamblers themselves to get their perspective. And also working with the poker societies. So rather than treating them as opposition, actually finding what that middle ground is. And today we're going to show you a bit of an overview, talk about the whakapapa of the project, but also the role, integral role that service providers have played so far. And so that's one of the reasons why we've got Muriel here to talk as an example of that. Niobe is going to talk to you about some of the things that you can do. And I'm just wondering if I could have a show of hands. So how many people as part of your contracts with the Ministry of Health are already building relationships with some venues in the area? Oh, that's really pleasing to see. So some of the Gamble Coast resources that we'll talk about today won't be new to you. So I hope this is useful. Project background. In the middle at the top, one of the key things was there was a bit of research done in 2014, and it found that most New Zealanders had no idea that staff and managers and venues had any responsibility for Gamble Coast. And so that was a bit of an issue. If you kind of compare that with alcohol host responsibility, it's relatively intuitive what's expected. So you don't serve someone who's intoxicated, you make sure they get safely home. Whereas, as we just heard from Mike earlier, the signs of harm can be, in gambling, can be a little bit more nebulous and a little bit more nuanced. So what we needed to do is have a robust set of signs of harm that venue staff could detect and then act upon. The other problem is that staff didn't feel like they had the legitimacy to go up to someone and talk to them about their gambling. I think the people at the very centre of the Gamble Host product are the gamblers themselves. And so as part of the training package that Niobe is going to talk to you about, we're going to hear from some gamblers. Because at the end of the day, they're the people that we need to help. So Johnny, if you wouldn't mind queuing up that little video.
Yeah, I'm Jim Petrie. I'm a business development manager in Lower Hutt. So I went past a venue one day and thought, oh, I'll pop in and spend half an hour. Won the jackpot on my first visit and thought, wow, this is something that's kind of cool. But not only do I enjoy pushing the buttons and the lights and all that, but I actually get some reward for that. So that fueled my subsequent visits, and that progressed like that probably for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. I then met someone, formed a relationship, and didn't have time for the gambling. The gambling at that point wasn't really an addiction, I don't think. It was more of a fun thing. So I was able to go several years without gambling. The relationship then started to sour, and I started to take solace in gambling again. And then for the next couple of years, it just took over my life. We split up. I was living on my own. Every available second was gambling, either during the day while I was supposedly working, night times, weekends, every opportunity I got to gamble, I did. I started running out of options for money to fuel the gambling, and by then the addiction was pretty horrendous. So I started borrowing money in my own name. After a while, those avenues ran out. I then started borrowing money off friends. Those avenues ran out. In the terms of financial loss, probably close to $500,000 through borrowed money and everything. I jointly owned a home, got settlement from that, spent that. As I said, borrowed money from every finance company and bank I could find. The rest of the people in my life, they've all gone. Workmates, people I really respected, people who gave me opportunities, people who lent me money, those relationships have all gone sour now. It's the one thing that emotionally pulls me now. I've got a long journey of addiction, but they didn't ask to be involved in that addiction, but I involved them anyway. So I feel really regretful about that and sad towards those people because they didn't ask for it. You're talking about an intervention by a staff member of the venue or host responsibility. Look, I can honestly say to you that it never happened to me. In all the years I've been gambling, no one's ever approached me. I think it takes courage, but that intervention, those few words, in my case, I'm sure if someone had had the strength to do that, I would not be sitting with you now.
So you can see the really powerful role that staff members in venues can play, and it might just be a small nudge, a small interaction, but it can actually set a positive course in their life. The vision of the Gamble Host project is to increase the implementation of gambling harm minimisation practices by staff and venue management, and of course to prevent and reduce gambling harm. When you think about why people get into hospitality, it's often because they want to provide good customer service, because they enjoy interacting with people and they care for people. And so actually using bar staff as eyes and ears on the ground, it's a little bit like what Mike was saying before, it increases our workforce. But we don't expect the bar staff to be fully trained counsellors. So what we wanted to do, obviously, is to give them that, that passion for looking after people who are playing pokies. And one of the challenges we faced is that when the research was initially conducted in 2014, it's almost as though the venue staff, in many cases, saw the gamblers as second-class patrons. So, you know, you have people who are buying drinks and food and socialising in the main venue, and then you have these other people who are sitting in the staff room. I think what Gamble Host brings sort of for is just the importance of looking after those gambling patrons. And I think, when you think about examples around the country, you can see some staff have a massive passion for looking after gamblers. They can see the massive difference that they can make, almost that kaitiakitanga, that guardianship. There are three key components in terms of the framework and how we've been working on the Gamble Host project. At the centre is the Safer Gambling Environments Group, which is a collaboration between HBA, General Affairs, Ministry of Health. Most important is the stakeholder input. So there were regional hui run in 2015 and 2016 talking with service providers, and we got some really clear feedback on what you thought would be beneficial in terms of the sort of behaviours that staff should be monitoring, some of the resources that should be made available, and some of the training initiatives that should take place. I'm going to talk about some of that stakeholder feedback from yourselves in the next slide. It was also really important to talk with the bar staff and the bar managers to see what they were experiencing, how difficult it was to go up to a gambler, and what they found helpful. Over on the left-hand row, there was obviously a lot of research looking at international examples, making sure that the signs of harm that we were kind of training people on were legitimate and also suitable in a New Zealand context. So these were the 4 areas that service providers provided feedback on. The materials, which we're going to show you very soon, behaviours that were expected of people, the training and the regulations. Now we just want to mention that this mahi doesn't include the scope of regulations, although some of this work has actually started to positively influence some of that material. It started to influence what gets looked for in mystery shopper scenarios, and also in terms of the inspection framework. The things in green is kind of like the before and after effect. So the green things are the things that have been implemented since that initial feedback in 2015. Resources, I'm going to hand over to Melody.
Great, thank you. So we'll just take you through the resources that were produced collectively with HPA, DIA and NIH. Just a clicker. Thank you. So here's a quick overview of the resources. When you see 4 Pokie trusts and you hear us talk about societies, it's all the same thing. So a society is a trust as well, so just interchangeable. We'll go through some of the resources for venue staff, and we'll look now at our Pokie players. So resources for gamblers. These resources were based on the research that HPA conducted with gamblers early on. Interesting, that second message in there was the feeling that gamblers kept describing to the researchers, and it was tested as an idea, and that was, feeling sick to the pit of their stomach when they walked away after a gambling session. The other one that was tested and what was used is the wallet leaflets, which you've got on your chair. These contain all the messages that are required by DIA to be in a venue. And these were also tested and resonated well with the gamblers. On the back of these is a spot for you to customise resources for your services in your area. So stickers are available that you can put on the back of resources. So when you start doing your mahi in venues or talking with venue operators, that's a way of getting your services and an opportunity to talk to some of your venue operators. If you need more stickers, please let Michaela from the HPA know. So resources for venue staff. So as we were saying, venue staff and DIA have always had a list of what was required around harm prevention, minimisation and regulation. So there's always been a writing about it, but there's never been something that's pulled it all together in a way in which people can see and understand, and that has some expectations about if you see this, do that. So it's not new, but it certainly has been presented in a way that's been really clear and really obvious, and that we all agree is how it should be operated. And a lot of this work and resources came after the first mystery shop in 2014, but prior to the mystery shop in 2016, a couple of months later. So we've started to notice some really big difference and some changes in the culture of care and what we're looking for in vendors. So the real, so just before we play that, if you look on your chair, you find an envelope, and in there you've got Brandon House Responsibility Training Card. And inside of there you'll see the Brandon House Reference Card, which talks about strong and general signs. So we're going to play a video for you, and this is what a venue staff would see in a game with. So pretend you're the barman in the venue and you're seeing these behaviours. And then we're going to ask, what did you identify and what did you see? Okay, so what did we see? If you were to look at your general and strong signs, does anybody notice anything particular? Or would have picked up any signs on what the thing was so they didn't start recognising the signs of problem gambling? Or half the gambling, I should say. Right, I'll go through them. The first one was a gentleman sitting here, and that was about the speed at which he was playing. So he was playing fast and high speed P-line. You wouldn't see the high speed P-line, but you'd see the intensity and rate of play that he was playing. So you'd expect, probably not, if in isolation, if somebody came and played for half an hour the first time in the venue, that wouldn't trigger any bells. But it should start to note that the rate of play and the fast speed. And that's just a general sign. We say 3 general signs start to make up some strong signs. The second part of it, I don't know if you noticed the lady in the background doing some symbolic rubbing of the machine. So that's the kind of the behaviours during playing. Yep. So in here it's under has gambling rituals or superstitions, rubbing or talking to the machine, and you see a lot of that going on as well. The third one in there was that when the man came in and stood over, was the social behaviour. So it becomes a bit angry, or stands over players, or starts becoming a bit possessive around the machine, wanting to leave with that thing. And just the kind of third thing in there, who noticed that lovely little old lady that has been there through every sector? So there's also some stuff around in there about length of play. So we expect venue operators to notice that someone's been sitting in there for 3 hours, even if there's no time for that. Next. So some of the resources for venue staff. To make it easier, and the social commission campaign, where the HPO put together these resources so that people got expected and knew they were going to be asked about the gambling. So, telling gamblers, our staff are required by law to look out for the signs of gambling harm. Please don't be offended if we ask you about your gambling. And the commitment to care, cultural care, but it's their role to do this. So, we all know that approaching somebody gambling again, when we talk about the gambling, is going to go one or two ways. It's either going to go really well or really bad, depending on the time. So this is to start that thinking that you will be approached and you will be asked. In the same way that none of us are offended if somebody comes and asks for our ID, or where alcohol sits now streets ahead of gambling approach and expectation. What's our third one? So we talked about the mystery shop exercises, and the presentation around that will go far more into what the signs are and what the expectations are. But it was clear that we needed to tie all of these resources, culture, care and expectations together. So societies are responsible for providing a policy for their venue. So we did a standard venue policy that was outcomes based, and societies, and a number of them have picked this up as their society too. So it's outcome based, or all these resources you can find on Tourism at Chance website under resources. If you were to look at this, you'd see the outcomes based and safer gambling environment. So what do we expect to happen there? You'd expect sweeps of the game. You'd expect observations and approaches and establishing rapport with gamblers, so you can then go and have those types of conversations. So these are can be tailor-made to suit the venues and their operating practices. And there's a lot of spoken here for best practice and some changes for venues that do more. And we see that. So how else do we get to tie all of this together? How do we do some standard training and sector? Because we know venue staff shift around and change, and it's not a lifetime career for some people. So a resource for Pokie Trust training package was developed. Dan's just showing you the process. That will come out in a minute. So during the process of this, societies talked about training packs that were consistent, and that if they knew somebody had been trained in the same way that their society operates, that would make it easier, and we'd get the same level of training across the board. So the training ties together the resources, the gambling host responsibility tax, the expectations of what you're doing with them. And it's a training kind of setup. So societies can tailor-make these to suit or to manage the way in which they manage their business. Okay. So what can you do? Let's have a look. Get to know the materials in the pack. Please, Karen has some available and happy to send out to your services. Have a look and be clear about what you expect and what we expect venues to do. That we expect interactions, some rapport, some intervention. Give people some help seeking information. And offer them exclusions. plan with other services in your area, including your multi-venue experience coordinator, how you might work with the venues. Venues don't want to see 40 service providers turn up to their venue and all have a slightly different approach. So have a planned and consistent approach. Offer support. So let them know you're there to help. Explain that you're actually not the regulator and you're not walking in to see if you're doing things right or wrong. That's EIA's job. Your role is to talk, offer support and work with them, because actually the joint outcome for all of us, if someone's sitting in a gaming room and it counts at the end, then that's what we want. We all want that person to be approached and to be given opportunities to go and set that and or to manage the venue. So we're all there for the same outcome, all of us. So talking about how people operate in their areas, I thought we'd ask Marina Murphy from the Mana Pururu to come and talk to us for a few minutes about how Marina's gone about working with venues in her area.
Excuse me, bit of a voice. So for us up in the north, here in Whangarei, we have a base in Whangarei, but we cover right up from Kaunaka to the Cape, Northland, to Tautapiro. So how we've approached this, because it is a little bit about when you walk into a venue, because we have a pretty good relationship with most of the venue, the staff of the venues, they do change quite a bit, but we have, I think we have a pretty good relationship because we haven't got the multi-venue exclusion in place. I purposely wanted it for our team. I purposely thought, let's not go with that until we have to, because I'd like us to have a relationship with these people so that we can work better together, and it works, and it's working. It's getting less and less the problems, we agree, in compliance with our staff exclusions. So I think that was a real bonus for us. And so we've approached a few, probably 8 out of the 13 in our CBD, our area in Whangarei. We have a lot more, but in the outer areas, but right in the CBD. I normally take some chocolate or a little bit of something, which kind of opens the door. It's just a little gesture of I come in peace, really. And I'd like to share this with you and your team. And so, and they know us already. They've got our cards. They have our RAC card and our business card. And I always kind of scan to check that that's, I can see that stuff's there. And straight away, in the beginning stages, they would say, "You have DIA." Straight away, it's like, no, no badge. I'm not the police. I'm just here to support. So it is about being clear around our role. And you'll find you have to go over and over that again and again, because the staff are different all the time. Even the managers change quite often. And I think one good experience I've had is with I think Greg Shipton from the Oxford Trust, and of course the Pokey's campaign. We didn't find not many doors were opening for that, and so he got involved and said, look, come through me, I will talk to them, and then we'll work together like that. So that's how we're approaching the harmonisation stuff with our services with the Oxford Trust. We have a key person there who can work with and work together. And it's a work in progress, but we're getting there.
Thank you, Marina. So as we know, it's not always going to be easy, but certainly we've seen some excellent relations between public health service providers and venue operators, and those relationships really are what we see as the key for dealing with issues and concerns in areas. To the extent where kind of share information on people who may breach or with consent, of course, and being able to offer services and help. So, as Marina said, they're not the regulator. You're there as support person and in your kind of professional capacity. So what we thought it would be useful to have a regulator talk about what some of the key venue requirements are and what we look at when we go to venue. So DIA, as a regulator, what is it that we're doing? So I'd like to welcome John Henbury from DIA. He's one of our senior gambling regulators. John.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Tohara tōku moana, ko tōku ingatia te moana, ko John Henbury, tōku ingoa, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you, Niovi. As Niovi said, I'm a regulator with the Department of Internal Affairs, and the department's responsible for the administration and the enforcement of the Gambling Act, and there's various regulations and game rules that are developed as part of that legislation. And as a regulator, my role is to advise people, to educate, to audit, inspect, and unfortunately sometimes as a last resort we may need to investigate or fine or prosecute people. Obviously that's our last resort here. A lot of our work is Class 4, which is the game machines in pubs and clubs, but we also deal with things like lotteries and raffles, houses, sales promotions, poker, and the casino. The most unusual one that I ever came across was one called Kalka Bingo, which is played at AMP shows around the country, and that they set up a paddock and divide it into little boxes, little squares, and put a number on them, and then wherever the cow decides to do its business, they win the money. But obviously most of our stuff is Class 4 and casinos. Yeah. Our team is based in Auckland. We cover from Taupo North, and when we're fully staffed, we have 10 people to cover that whole area. So we're quite thinly spread, if you like. And we're moving, whilst we have engaged a lot with health and Oasis, etc., we are moving towards engaging more with the health providers and support organisations, because it gives us a better sense of where we need to target our limited resources, because our resources clearly are quite limited. And so it's actually really good to hear as to where the issues are, etc. Who's got the slide? Oh, there you go. Oh, okay. Oh, right. there's harm minimisation regulations, and there's some specific areas that we have to look at when we go into the venues. So we actually check out